Hey everyone, it's Josh for Pure Epic Studios here, and welcome back to part 2 of the Connect 4 tutorial. After completing part 1, it may have seemed like we didn't get much progress done because there's not a lot to prove on the preview. But we actually got a lot of the back work done, and in part 2 we're going to get a lot more satisfying work done, you might say. So to get started, let's go to preview just to review where we're at. Right now we have it where the player can choose which column he or she wants to play on. And so now we need to work on it dropping in the right column and then distinguishing which row it needs to go on. But before we do that, you might have noticed that it's a little bit out of proportion here. This side has a smaller gap from this left side than this does to the right side. And that's because I accidentally put the wrong spacing. So let's go back into the scene, go into attributes, and the spacing attribute is 80. It should really be 85, so really quick just change that. Okay, now it should be more accurate. There we go, cool. Now it's perfect. Okay, going back, let's go into the red actor, and this is the rule where the player where the player can choose which column it needs to go on. It's pretty long. And let's just name this rule before the drop, or before drop, just so we can distinguish between the different rules easily. Now create another rule, and we're going to name this drop and match. Okay. So pretty much when the mouse button is up, and also, yeah, for now we'll keep it at that. So what it needs to do is, it knows which column it is down here, but now we need it to find which row it needs to go into. So create another self attribute, a real one, and name it row, because this will be the row. Going into preview so we can visualize what we need to do. Right now, vertical is are the rows. So down here would be row 6, row 5, row 4, row 3, row 2, row 1. So, if I let go here, it needs to go to row 6. In order to find that out, we need to make a table. So go to scene. Actually, no, sorry. Go to home. Go into the tables tab and click down here and create a new table. And we're going to name it TB just to distinguish that it's a table. And played in column. So it knows how many pieces have been played in each column. So we double click on that, go into there, and we're going to make 7 columns, because that's how many there are going to be, and put them all to real. Oops. Okay, so now when each piece is played in a column, it's going to add 1 to this number, and you'll see why. So go into the actor, go into the red piece actor, which is the only one we have right now, and say change attribute self row. So go into the self and go to the self row attribute we just created. We just created, and change it to 6 minus how many are already in the row. So that would be the table we just created. Let's go to played in column, and the row will be 1 because there's only 1 row in that table. Then column will be self column. Alright, cool. Now it knows which row to go to, and we're going to put a little bit delay before the drop just so it has time to, oh wait, actually first we need to change the table value of how many are in the column. So played in column, row 1, self column, and then we go change the value to the same value plus 1. So we're just adding 1 to that column, one piece to that column. So you go to plate and column, row 1, and self column, plus 1. Okay, now tables take longer than attributes to actually change values, so we're going to put a slight delay. So make a timer, say after, it's going to be a very slight delay, 0.01 seconds, run to completion just to make sure it actually goes through. Then we say interpolate, create a interpolating behavior, interpolate attribute y, so self position y, change that to the starting y position. Then I think starting y plus game spacing, the spacing between the distance between each piece so they don't overlap. So go into game spacing. We multiply spacing by how many are already in that column. So we go to the table value, table how many in columns, so we go to game, plate and column, row 1, and then self column. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Now that I think should work. And we'll make the duration 0.5 seconds, so that's how fast it'll drop. Okay, let's check out preview, see what it does. So when we let go, it drops to row 6. And now if we have another one, it should drop to row 5. But we only have one piece on the screen right now, so we need to actually make a spawner that creates the pieces. So going back to the Actors tab, let's create a new actor, name it Spawner. This will spawn the pieces. So go double click on that actor, go inside, and size or in color doesn't matter because it's not going to be visible when we're finished. So create a rule. When mouse button is down, and also attribute number of pieces is less than or equal to 41, because 6 times 7 is 41, and that's how many pieces are that's the limit of the pieces on the board. It's less than or equal to 41. Then create a spawn actor behavior, spawn actor, red piece. It doesn't matter in front of actor or anything because it's not going to be visible. Alright, let's drag this actor onto the scene really quick. And there are a few things that I forgot to do that we need to do really quick. So go into attributes and create a real attribute and name it pieces placed. We're going to make this know how many pieces have been placed. We know how many pieces are on the scene, but we don't know how many have been placed. So we'll set that up, and you'll see why right now. So go into the home, go into the Actors tab, and go into the red piece actor. And we're actually going to put these two rules, before drop and match, into a big rule. So create a rule and drag these two into it. So drag it right in. And this is going to make sure that it's the piece that needs to be placed, not any other piece. So self ID equals the table, the game number of pieces placed attribute that we just made, plus 1, because it's the number of pieces placed plus 1 is the next piece that needs to be placed. So then these two rules can execute. And also go into the before drop rule. And it's loading. And we're going to change the self ID equals number of pieces to self ID equals number of pieces placed plus 1. Same thing. So go into game number of pieces placed plus 1. And we also need to go into the drop match rule, and in the timer, the delay timer for interpolating, right before it interpolates, we need to change attribute game number of pieces placed plus 1. So we're just adding 1 to the number of pieces placed right before it's being placed. So plus 1. And now let's give that a whirl, preview, see what happens. So far so good. Alright, there we go. Now we have a placing system. And now we just need to add a black piece. So, going back, all we have to do is copy the red piece actor, so go home, and hold alternate, and drag the red piece right next to it. And it'll be a copy of the red piece, but we'll just name it black piece. And we'll go into that, double click into that, and we're going to change the image to a black piece. So go into Images tab, drag the black piece that is in there, and replace that with the red piece. Replace the red piece with the black piece. Now we have to go into the spawner, because the spawner isn't spawning any black pieces, and it also needs to know whose turn it is. So it needs to know when it needs to spawn which piece. So hold alternate and drag the rule we already have in the spawner, just to copy it, and change red piece to black piece. So it's exactly identical, except make a self attribute, a boolean, true or false, and name it red's turn. So when red's turn is true, then it needs to spawn a red piece. When it's false, then it needs to spawn a black piece. So when red's turn is true, spawn this. When red's turn is false, then spawn a black piece. And we also need to make two behaviors, two change attribute behaviors. Change attribute after it places, change attribute self red's turn to false in the red rule, and the opposite, so hold alter and copy this change attribute, change red's turn to true. So hopefully, if I did it right, it should alternate between spawning actors. So preview. Yep. Hold the black one. Alright, cool. That's working. And it just keeps on going and going. Okay, now, really quick, let's just change the background of the scene to gray, just because it's a lot easier to, it's not as hard on the eyes. So go into the scene, go into color, click on color. Let's just pull this up to make it gray. Okay. Now we can implement the board. So create a new actor, name it board, and we're going to go into the actor. The size is going to be 85 times 7 for the column, which is 5 95, I think. Have to double check that. And then it's 595, and then 6 times 85 is 510. So that's going to be the size. Now go into images. I have a board image. It's not the best, but it'll work for now. And so we're going to drag this into the scene as well. Go into the scene, drag the board in. Now I already found out which XY coordinates it needs to be at. So double click on the board actor in the scene. Click on position and change the X position to 390 and change the Y position to 446. And now preview. It should line up pretty well. And you can tinker around if it's not lined up perfectly. But it looks pretty good from what I can see. Going back, right now what we're going to do is just hide everything that we don't want visual. So move the spawner where you can't see it, and then move the red piece actor off to the side where you can't see it as well. Now preview. This should look pretty nice. So the player can just drag and drop in whichever column he wants. That's all for part 2. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to tune in for part 3, and have an awesome day.